Well, good morning, everybody. Still in the midst of winter. Hopefully spring is soon here. We'll be talking about the Seawolves baseball team. So, yeah. So did they start yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. They playing games or just practice?
Oh, we opened conference play this past weekend, so we played about over a dozen games.
Cool. Great. Look forward to catching some games here. We don't have a very lengthy agenda, but we've got some interesting things that we're going to cover today. I'm going to ask to start we'll rise and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask John Corrado to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll ask for a roll call. We'll start with Fred going around the horn.
Fred Walter.
Frank Trotta. Jim Morgul.
Leonard Benedict.
Sam Stanley.
Kevin Law.
John Corrado.
Anna Lubitz.
Harris Papadopoulos.
Good thing. Our student reps are here. Thank you very much. I'm going to recognize as a quorum. We're going to conduct business. Approval of the minutes for our last meeting, December 10th, 2012. As for a motion by John, seconded by Jim. Any comments, questions, revisions, or additions to the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. The minutes are approved. My chairman's report, very brief. Just like all of you, not a day goes by, that don't feel proud about being affiliated with this university. Something every day you're reading about or hearing about, whether it's in the academics, the business side of things, or the athletic side of things, and just really exciting. And Sam, keep up the great job. Looking forward to hearing your president's report. And we have a very special guest with us today. And like we've been doing for a lot of our meetings, recognizing whether it's somebody, one of our fine students or fine athletes. We have a great success story here, both personal, academic, and sports and wise. Miguel Masonette from Riverhead, not only one of the stars of our football team, just really one of the great ambassadors for this university, generating great press for the university. He had a phenomenal Stony Brook Seawolves football career here, all-time leading rusher for the school, not only for the school, but for the Big South Conference, and participating recently in the NFL Combine, and soon to hopefully be drafted. And so we're excited to continue to watch his career. And on behalf of the council, we wanted to recognize Miguel and thank him for everything he's done for this university. And he is here with us today. We're going to ask you to come on up. An award here from the Stony Brook Council for Miguel in recognition of an outstanding season, 7 All-America honors, and becoming Stony Brook and the Big South all-time leading rusher. Miguel, on behalf of the Stony Brook Council, congratulations.
Thank you.
You have to autograph something with Stony Brook on it for my son who followed me. This is perfect. This is perfect. It's to Gregory. I'm not shy. Jim, what else did I omit on his stellar career? What else can you share with us?
Absolutely. Number one, he's a tremendous person. That's really the most important part of Miguel. He's a tremendous student. First in class, sits in the front. Doesn't put his iPod on when he goes. He sits. He's a great person. Comes from Riverhead. He's a star person in Riverhead. He's really the icon of Riverhead in so many ways. He takes great pride in the university and his hometown. I think that really defines Miguel. Number one. Number two, he's our first player probably ever gonna get drafted, ever to go to the NFL Combine. his best games were against the best competition at Army. We beat Army for the first time, 23-3. Miguel dominated that game. Syracuse, he rushed almost 200 yards versus a very good Syracuse team. But really what defines him is he's the real role model of a student and athlete. And he's never been in trouble, whether high school or at Stony Brook. And we're very, very proud of Miguel. He's somebody that represents and talks about Stony Brook all the time. He's almost like one of us, or he's always telling us. Tell him the story about the doctors. We went to the NFL Combine.
I was basically sitting around in a room just like this with people all around me. And right where that table is, right in the center, they sat me on that table, and a doctor came up to me and whispered in my ear. He's like, "Are you from Stony Brook?" I was like, "Yeah." And he honestly, got everyone's attention, and he basically announced that I was from Stony Brook, first player ever to come to the Combine. And, everyone claps for me and stuff, so that that was really a blessing, and it was cool.
So the doctors recognized Stony Brook Medicine, and I think some were even Stony Brook alumni from the medical school. I thought it was really cool, right? There was Stony Brook alumni. That was the thing. The connection was our guys from Stony Brook Medicine, Stony Brook Medical School is here, so we're going to take care of him, which I thought was a real good connection with athletics and the medical center. So, but Miguel has his pro day. We're going to have 19 NFL teams here on Friday. Well, they'll time him, test him, weigh him, the whole 9 yards. They'll go through drills, and then the New England Patriots have asked for a special one-on-one with him the following Wednesday here. So, regardless if you get drafted or not, if you make it or not, we're very proud of you. Thank you. I know there's a couple people who had a question, Kevin. I don't know if anybody wanted. They were asking me questions. Any questions for Miguel? I'm sure he would be happy to take them.
Good.
Any questions?
Don, anybody? Where are the questions coming from? From staff or the council?
Jim Margot.
Jim, what's your question?
I know about transfer to Boston College.
He's a BC fanatic, but we still let him on the council.
Well, Jim told me that you were sure to beat BC this year, so I was very glad that it was rescheduled. So.
Well, Jim, congratulations. Just the whole year from baseball to football and basketball. We wish the team good luck in the NITs. Too bad we came up short for the big dance, but NITs, we wish the basketball team a good, long playoff. And hopefully we'll see them.
Jim, when's the first game in the NIT?
Wednesday night,
Where?
7:15 at UMass on ESPN3. If we win that, we'll probably go to Iowa.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Good luck, guys. Thanks, Miguel. Thank you very much.
Bye.
It's not just academics. I had the privilege, last Friday, with my LIA hat on, we had our annual luncheon, and we had former Vice President Al Gore there, and we had, he had an incredible career. One of the many things he's done, he was a Nobel Prize winner in 2007, along with some co-recipients who just happened to be two professors from Stony Brook. And so we're able to give them, acknowledge them, have them stand in front of a room of 1,000 people and give them a nice shout out. And again, whether it's academics or athletics or all the other great things that everybody here is involved with. It's really cool, Sam. So it's a privilege to be a part of it. And that's it for my chairman's report. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. And let me begin by welcoming everybody to the Stony Brook University Hilton Garden Inn. We waited a long time to say those words, and it's very exciting to have the opportunity to do it. This is, of course, absolutely brand spanking new hotel, 135 rooms with the possibility of expansion based on business, dining services, guest rooms. I've had a chance to tour it. You'll have a chance to tour it after today if you're interested in swimming pool, fitness center, library reading room, which I've already used for meetings. These conference rooms, there's 3 of them essentially. The 3 of them are named after former Stony Brook presidents. So Shirley Strom Kenny, Jack Marburger, John Toll are the 3 of them. We're in 2 of them together. Of course, when you put all 3 of them together, it's called the Stanley. It's actually not true. It's not a bad idea. But anyway, it's fantastic space. We already have people booking it. It's going to make a huge difference, I think, to the university in many ways. And we really believe it's going to build
business throughout the community. We're going to be able to hold more conferences at Stony Brook University. When we do that, of course, we'll have business at this hotel, but we'll also grow business for everybody in the region. We're excited about what it's going to mean. So it's a great space. Crescent Hotels and Resorts is managing it for the owner. We get a small percentage share of the revenue that comes through, which is important, goes to the Stony Brook Foundation, which is important. Some of that money is earmarked for scholarships, essentially, for students, so it's a very positive thing all the way around.
So even though the Hilton name is on it, another company is the operator?
Yeah, yeah, so,
That's how
but
they
they
do it.
work with Hilton, essentially, yeah, the Crescent actually does the management. So, so that's, I think, as I say, very exciting, and we're going to really, I think, get great use out of this hotel. Second thing I think that I just wanted to mention, we'll have a report on it, but that is the celebration of raising $200 million in 12 months, and Dexter Bailey will talk about that. But that is certainly a historic period of giving for us, and we're very excited about it, and we look forward to hearing from Dexter summarizing what was done. We're going to have the gala is coming, the Stars of Stony Brook Gala. We're going to honor Alan Alda this year. For those of you who haven't been following or haven't had a chance to follow this, Alan Alda is absolutely committed to science and the communication of science. Many of you know he had a show on PBS for a number of years where he interviewed scientists about their work. But he's felt for a long time that more needed to be done to help scientists do a better job, essentially, of communicating the work they do, both to engage people in the excitement of science, but also to make the case for funding, essentially, for science in the community as well. So Alan has worked with Howie Schneider in our School of Journalism to set up a Center for Communicating Science. And Alan has been traveling around the country, doing workshops, essentially, to help train postdocs, graduate students, assistant professors, how to better communicate their work. And part of the proceeds from the gala, always scholarships will come first, and we'll fund scholarships for undergraduates, that always comes first. But part of the proceeds will also go to support the Center for Communicating Science. And Alan himself has made a personal pledge to this, so he's very supportive of it. And I encourage anybody who's interested to look into coming, because I think it's going to be a great evening. He's a really well-deserving recipient, and it's something we're very excited about, and a great program, essentially, that's helping to get the Stony Brook name out, but also is making a difference around the country. I wanted to make an announcement about an addition to the senior leadership team. One of the positions we've been interested in is a Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, really to help us in terms of long-term policy planning and strategic planning for the university as a whole. And I'm very pleased to announce that Matt Whalen, who's Associate Provost for Enrollment and Retention Management, is going to be Interim Vice President for Strategic Initiatives. And Matt, as many of you know, we've had incredible success in admissions recently. That's an area that reflects a number of strengths in the university, but also, I think, reflects his leadership. And he's done a great job with admissions and enrollment management. He brings a very analytic mind to this process, and again, I look forward to working with him, and I'm really pleased that he's part of the senior team. Accolades keep coming in for the university from a number of points, and one of them, I think, which makes it is important to us, is we always talk about excellence, but we also talk about access as well. And the fact that something that we do different from any other institutions is we really provide excellence, but at lower cost, and that's been recognized. Kiplinger magazine named us the 22nd best value in public colleges and universities for in-state students around the country. We're very proud of that. And we're the 9th best value for out-of-state students. So the value of the Stony Brook education is being recognized nationally, and again, we're very proud of that. I'm going to wrap up. We're going to have presentations on the budget, which is always important to us, and so I won't talk about that, but I'll save that for later. But I wanted to talk about one more thing. If you look in your report, there's some great faculty honors that have been received by our faculty, and I won't go through those in detail, but I encourage you to read them because I think they're very exciting. But I wanted to mention one of our seniors, Kevin Sackle, who's an honors college student, and he received the very prestigious Churchill Scholarship. And he's actually going to study at the University of Cambridge. He's done work in a number of areas and really focuses primarily in mathematics. Brilliant young man, great future ahead of him, and he was the only student in the state of New York, essentially, from New York to receive this Churchill Award. So we're very proud of him, and we should probably try and get Kevin here at some point to meet all of you, because he's someone, as I said, you know, So I think those are the main things that I wanted to cover from my report. We were very fortunate to have Governor Cuomo come out to Stony Brook. It's always a pleasure to welcome the governor. He gave his New York Rising speech, talked about the exciting things that are in the upcoming budget, which looks like it may be going on time, but talked about a number of those initiatives, and mentioned Stony Brook in many of those, and the way in which Stony Brook, as well as some of our alums and some individuals connected with Stony Brook, are making a difference in the plans going forward. And finally, I'll conclude, for those of you who've been following this story, we're very pleased to reach agreement with Three Village Soccer Club about the soccer fields. It's an agreement that I think meets the old cliche of win-win. I'm very pleased that we're able to expand what we have for the students. That was our #1 priority, was to give our students some of the field space that they need. And yet at the same time, we've also helped the Three Village Soccer program and maintain the strong relationship that we've had with that organization for years. So I want to thank all those people on my team, Elaine, Barbara, and others who are involved in these negotiations and moving it forward, because I'm very pleased with how things came out. So I think I'll stop there, but I'll be happy to answer any questions about any other things in the news or questions you have about the university.
Great. Well, thank you, Sam. Let the record reflect that Council Member Diana Weir has joined us. Sam, when I was growing up, and probably a lot of folks in this room, Sam, Barron's was always the key, entity to sort of rank schools. Now it seems like is it U.S. News World Report and Kiplinger's? They're sort of like the biggies.
Well, U.S. News, I think, still dominates that space, and it's kind of amazing to me that really, as a magazine, it's really no longer really much of an active magazine. This is a public thing, so they may be suing me soon. But it's really not much of a magazine, and really their ratings business has become, I think, the major arm of their work. So I would say they're the most important. I think they have some objective criteria they use, but they're also very strong on subjective criteria. So one of the major things they do is reputational. So they really ask. So the poll goes out, and I'm one of the people who fill out the polls, and they really say, what's your thought about the University of X, and would you rank it as outstanding or just okay? And so that's a reputational kind of index, and so it's one that leads itself to the possibility of some distortions. People can coast on reputations for years. If you were good at one time, you can probably continue to coast for periods of time. Probably penalizes those places that may be up and coming. And it certainly encourages people to push the people who vote. And so at this time of year, I get stacks of information from universities. Literally, probably this much or more of things coming from different universities telling me about all the activities, because they know I'll be voting on this reputational index. So I think it dominates it. I think Kiplinger's has been out there again, more on the value side of things, talking about, since they're a financial kind of magazine, where is value? They certainly are there. There's a number of other rating that occurs. There's some international ones, Q&S and others that have been done. They really vary in their quality, and always when I review them, I don't always agree, at least in my mind, with how they end up ranking people. And I think there's anomalies there, in part based on some of the ways they used to rank. So these rankings are useful to us in that they provide a benchmark that allow us to look at other institutions, figure out how other people view us, maybe sometimes more than our inherent strengths, how other people view us, but that's important to know. But I would say U.S. News certainly guides students and their parents as they think about colleges. I wouldn't minimize the fact that, would you agree with that, Matt, that they make a difference in how students view the institutions? There's no question about that.
Big driver for parents.
Big driver for parents. NRC, which is a much more objective kind of ranking system, which is done to rank our graduate schools. I think that to me is a more solid ranking system, but that's really for the graduate side, not the undergraduate side. So it's a very long answer to your question.
No, but it's helpful, and it's great that we're viewed so highly in both those rankings.
Yeah.
And I have one other question for you,
Sure.
Sam. And, I saw the story Newsday today, and just curious about the sequestration process in Washington. What else does it mean for Stony Brook, in addition to maybe student aid? Are there other potential impacts to Stony Brook?
So it's a really unfortunate situation and one that's bad for universities across the country. And of course, Stony Brook receives a significant amount of money from the federal agencies to support our research. So that's the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy. They all provide support for really, I think, groundbreaking research that's done on our campus. The cuts that are automatically in will reduce the budgets of those funding agencies in the vicinity of 5% in this first round. For Stony Brook, that's ends up adding up to about a $7.6 million hit to our researchers. Now, how that's going to be implemented exactly, still in some of the agencies' case hasn't been fully seen. So in other words, if they're faced with a budget cut, they have different ways they can do it. They can cut existing grants a certain amount. They can stop funding new grants during the fiscal period. So in other words, we just won't fund as many new grants during the fiscal period. Or they can cut new awards by a certain amount. And unfortunately, some of them haven't really still reached decisions on how they're going to deal with this. And so we don't know what the impact will be, but if you just take that 5% number, our estimate would be about a $7.7 or so million cut from us there. It hurts work study, as you said, so it hurts things for our students in terms of work study. It doesn't hurt Pell this year, but it could go into Pell next year, which would be a significant impact for us. But the other thing I'd say, and I've talked about this a little before, is that when you create an environment where our scientists and our graduate students and postdocs aren't sure about the commitment of the government to funding research. When you really create this kind of environment, and people start to question, why am I in this field? Because if you're really not sure that there's a future commitment, and you see that people you're working with, sometimes they have money, sometimes they don't, there's not a lot of stability, it worries me about the next generation. It worries me that the talented graduate students we have now, or even the undergraduates looking ahead will say, well, maybe this is really not the career for me. Because if there's, if I'm not sure whether I can be able to get funded, if it really looks like it's difficult down the line, if the U.S. fundamentally is not committed to supporting research, should I really go in this field? And I worry about that. And I think this kind of fiscal, self-made fiscal crisis and these kind of cuts, I think really do have an impact on the scientists in the field. And so that worries me, and I think it's another reason why we should work to get this straightened out and get a more rational approach really to the budget long term.
So following this, assuming 2020.
Correct,
Rational
exactly.
long-term planning as opposed to year-to-year politicking.
Well
Yeah.
said.
Right,
well
right,
said.
good.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Sam?
I just have one question. The issue of the downtown revitalization. I've been hearing some rumblings from the community, and I was wondering how that's going, how your outreach for student housing and so forth.
So we've had a very good meeting with the new town of Brookhaven supervisor, Ed Romaine. We've talked about some of the issues involved in this. I think he's certainly seems supportive of the idea of going back again in terms of, the RFP or RFA was stalled for the time being. I think he wants to go back and look at ways to redo this again. I think he's interested in setting up a committee that would have local businesses, that would have residents in the areas, that would have representation from the university to really take a look at this issue. So I think it's on their radar, but I would say right now it's moving, but on the radar.
Thank you.
Yep.
You mentioned about the grants, the NIH grant. Are you affected by this or not?
Yes, I mean, I think we're going to be. It's just we have to be. I mean, if they're taking this kind of 5% cut, it's going to affect Stony Brook researchers. What I can't tell you is exactly, is it going to mean that it's going to be harder to get a grant? In other words, they're going to fund fewer. Are they going to take money out? Do you have any update on that, Ken, from your visits in terms of NIH?
So I sit on the National Institute of Diabetes, Digestive, and Kidney Disease Council, and Griff Rogers, our director, made the announcement that there'll be about a 6 to 7% cut in existing grants, and they'll continue to fund the grants that they have been funding. And so, just as Sam said, it means a big chunk of many millions of dollars to the medical school in sponsored research. It's not so easy to dial that back because a lot of that is in salary support for technicians and postdoctoral fellows and graduate students. Some of it's supplies, some of it's animal charges, and so it's going to definitely affect our ability to be competitive in the research realm.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sam?
Is there a time frame? I mean,
So
We're talking about Washington, but
Yeah, but I mean, I think
in
these things
reality,
yeah, I
we
mean,
have
these
an
things
issue.
are happening, right? I mean, they're gonna have to deal with them essentially,
Yeah.
so I think they're okay.
Thank you, Sam. And I was there for the event the governor was at. Sam just mentioned, it was great, you know. This governor, he's very familiar with what's happening. You know, it was like his third or fourth time to Stony Brook in the last 3 years. So he's really familiar with a lot of the things going on here, which is great. You know, it's good to have that on the radar screen. So we're going to move on to the reports. Our first report is from our VP of External Relations, Elaine Crossan, regarding the 2013 legislative priorities.
Morning.
Morning.
I'm going to preface my remarks this morning with the fact that the state budget is being negotiated even as we speak. So what I've done for today's presentation is taken a snapshot as of yesterday. We started, so there are two ways we get money from the state of New York. Let me start there. One is operating funds and the other is capital funds. So I'll start the discussion with the very good news that our operating budget, thanks to SUNY 2020 and the maintenance of effort provision, maintains general fund support for the SUNY campuses at the same levels as last year. And that's what the legislation requires, and that's what the legislature has, the governor proposed, and the legislature has maintained in their proposals. The other operating funds that we are seeking from the state have to do with the School of Marine and Atmospheric Science. We have a $1 million request for operating funds for the Marine and Animal Disease Lab. We've had this grant in the past. It's over a 3-year period. It expired in March of 2011, but we had not expended all the funds, so the funds are now drying up. So we've been in talks with the state senate to include this funding stream in the final budget that's being negotiated, and we've been told it looks good. As I said, the other way we get money is capital funding. We went into this budget cycle with a very robust capital budget request, $98 million for our critical maintenance funding. We spread that request over 3 years. The reason we made this request is, some of you may know that given the timing of the Gyrodyne judgment, which was handed down after the state budget had been put in place last year, we were asked to contribute on a temporary basis to pay for that judgment, with the understanding that we would be seeking some of that money back. So we put in a request over 3 years to get back the $98 million. This budget represents the first year of that request. We asked for $60 million in critical maintenance funding, and the governor's executive budget proposal included that $60 million. Also good news is the Assembly One House bill and the Senate One House bill also included that $60 million. So it looks that like when the final budget is adopted, it will have $60 million in critical maintenance money restored for the university. That money will be used to complete a project underway, extending our electrical feeders and reinforcing them and upgrading the power plant. The other projects you see listed on the screen are projects that will hopefully get funded in years 2 and 3. So we've asked for the $98 million over 3 years, in addition to the annual $70 to $75 million we get in critical maintenance funding historically year after year. So I talked about these already. One disturbing bit of news in this budget cycle is that there was no base critical maintenance funding in the governor's proposed budget back in January. The chancellor had indicated that the SUNY system would spend down its existing critical maintenance appropriations from prior years, and that there'd be no new money for critical maintenance, base critical maintenance. The problem for Stony Brook is that we spend down our critical maintenance funds every year. So we do not have a lot to spend over the next 2 years. And the Senate and Assembly budget bills include no provision for additional critical maintenance money either. So we will, it seems, have to make do with the $60 million that we got in the executive budget. There is talk, however, of a 5-year capital plan next year. So we'll be back next year to argue that we should have base critical maintenance funding in the budget. We have 2 strategic initiative requests. These used to be called member items, and so we go to our champions in the legislature and ask them for capital money to help us fund particular buildings. We have a $22.8 million request in for the Center for Biomedicine and a $50 million request towards a $150 million mezzanine facility that would house companies outgrowing the incubator. I put together this slide to keep track of our reappropriations from prior years. These are strategic initiative projects that we've gotten appropriation authority for over the years, but we have not yet identified the cash that would support the appropriations, but we do have the authority to spend the money if we can identify it. So it comes to a nice number of $51.5 million, and we will be working with the legislature, and not this year, but in future years, probably next year, to get some cash behind these appropriations. And were originally designed, these appropriations, to fund the projects you see in the left corner, but we can always repurpose those appropriations and if we get the legislators' support for repurposing. With respect to the hospital, the hospital receives some direct state support from in the state budget. The idea was that this money would offset the high cost of our benefit packages and make us better able to compete with our private competitors. The SUNY had requested $90 million in the executive budget proposal for all the 3 hospitals. The executive budget included $60 million, and we are hearing from the Senate and the Assembly that they are supportive of adding to that $60 million. The Senate has come up with $27.8 million, which would bring us back to the funding level of last year. And the Assembly is a bit more generous. They are proposing that $50 million be put in addition to the $60 million. So the good news, I suppose, is as they negotiate, the range will be an add-on of anywhere from 27.8 to 50.
Hey Elaine, what's in my town, I get these local newspapers, and I'm seeing ads being taken out in the newspapers to save our hospital. And they're making allegations that SUNY is considering getting out of the hospital business. I know there have been some real issues with downstate, but are some people trying to lump our hospital in with the issues going on at downstate?
So the problem with Downstate Hospital, for those of you unfamiliar, Downstate, SUNY operates 3 hospitals. One of them is Downstate, and Downstate entered into a transaction last year or 2 years ago with the Long Island College Hospital in an effort to make both hospitals more viable. It turned out that Litch, as it's known, had significant debt and Downstate had its own fiscal problem. So together, they had a bigger fiscal problem, which is has prompted the SUNY Board of Trustees to vote to close Litch, the Long Island College Hospital, and Downstate is struggling with an operating deficit of over $150 million. So the Chancellor went to the legislature really in her budget presentation to say that the system was hemorrhaging money, and that she made an overall request to the legislature for $185 million in operating funds, 35 for Upstate Medical Center, and 150 for Downstate Medical Center, so that they can continue to operate.
As a matter of fact, it's $5 million every month.
That's right.
That's what Downstate is bleeding the state. And secondly, Leach's problem was really malpractice. They had so much malpractice cases that they couldn't afford it. That's one of the reasons why.
Medical malpractice?
Yes.
So too many awards, which was
Yes.
making it financially hemorrhage. Interesting.
So, as I said, the Chancellor's position has been to ask for this $185 million in operating funds. And her position has been that if she does not get that operating money from the legislature, she will be taking it from the other SUNY campuses. So I think, you know, there is
The other SUNY campuses or the other hospitals?
No, every campus in the system. So, again, if you look at the two budget proposals coming out of each house of the legislature, neither house is inclined to give her the outright $185 million in operating funds. They've asked, as you can see in the Assembly budget proposal was the most generous on this point. They put aside $100 million in a loan program for any distressed SUNY hospital, but they must come up with a financial viability plan in order to qualify for that loan. But the Senate did not have anything in its budget proposal to address the problem. So I suspect this is part of the negotiations that are taking place today. Just what are they going to do about the SUNY Downstate problem?
See, the problem is, you know, Kings County is so close to Downstate, and Downstate has medical school, and it's employing more people in Brooklyn than anybody else. So that's one of the biggest problems. And politically, I mean, there's a lot of politics going on. In fact, they shouldn't have bought Long Island College Hospital. That was the biggest problem, one of the big problems. And it's creating problems for the state itself.
So I think to go back though and answer one of the points that you raised, Kevin, Stony Brook University Hospital is in the black, is running very efficiently and very well. So it's unfortunate for us that the problems at the other hospital have cast SUNY hospitals in a very bad light as far as fiscally, because it's very difficult for us to separate out, because they just talk about SUNY hospitals. Upstate has had some problems, Downstate has problems. Yet our hospital, I would argue, because of great management, as well as things just related to our location and paramedics. Some of it's us, some of it's our natural location and so on. But we're running very well, and we're actually trying to do some things to actually expand our network, as you know, including reaching out to Southampton Hospital, as has been discussed at these meetings. And so one of the challenges we face is the fact that as SUNY, as a system, is looking at this, they're gun shy about hospitals, concerned about things, and it's one of the challenges we face is pointing out we're trying to do something that's actually good business for our hospital. And of course, the better financially our hospital is, the better it is for SUNY as a whole, because we're actually a positive. So, and what's lost sometimes is Dr. Benedict mentioned, is that we are training physicians, nurses, and so on for the state of New York, and a very high proportion of the people we train stay in New York State. So what the SUNY hospitals and medical schools do is actually a very positive thing overall. But I'm not minimizing downstate's problems. They have significant problems and they need to be addressed, and I think the Assembly's approach is a reasonable one. But, as I said before, the problems we face, one is this lumping together of hospitals is a problem for us.
Right.
Because we really are very separate in that sense. And two, the Chancellor has, as Elaine said, has stated very clearly that if she can't get support for the operating dollars from the legislature, she's going to look at the money that SUNY campuses have and pull from that. And I think the estimate is, Lyle or Mark, that number for us would be, if let's say it was the whole 180 million, that number for us would be about?
Could be 25 million,
so
plus
20,
or minus.
$25 million plus or minus could be taken from our budget to help. And there's been no talk about loan versus simply taking that I'm aware of. So it's something we're very concerned about.
So that, you know, because we're running well, we may be asked to subsidize the entities that are not doing so well.
Well, that's kind of happened already to some degree in terms of money that was allocated for the hospitals and then redirected to downstate alone. So there was money that should have gone proportionally to all 3 hospitals that then ended up going just to downstate because of their problems. So that's already happened. We've already done some of that. But yeah, that's a risk further on. But I think it's also a risk to every other SUNY campus. Old Westbury, Farmingdale, any SUNY campus I think could potentially have money taken out from them to help support this. So it's a problem for SUNY that needs to be addressed.
It's Sam, if I remember correctly from a meeting a year ago or 2 years ago, it's true, Stony Brook were the only hospital that also has a medical school that is part of a SUNY campus, where all the others are either a medical school or a hospital or not a part of
right. So what it is Stony Brook has Stony Brook University, Stony Brook University Hospital, and a School of Medicine, and nobody else has those 3 together. Correct.
Right. So we really do stand alone, and we shouldn't be lumped in with facilities that are either just a medical school or just a hospital, and looking to, you know, maybe come after us and other institutions for their financial issues.
Yep.
Got it?
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Elaine.
That's okay. Discussion. On the economic development, in the economic development budget, the executive budget proposed that our centers of excellence, we have 2 centers of excellence here at Stony Brook, the Center for Wireless and Information Technology and the Advanced Energy Center. The governor's proposal had $872,000 in it, and it was anticipated that the 2 centers would split that money. The Senate responded in their proposal with an extra $500,000 for the Center of Excellence at Stony Brook. And sorry, Sam,
I was going to
that's
say, you've
not
really
the
got to change
CEO.
that.
That's
Really got to
the
It was
change
just
that.
for you, Sam.
Oh,
I'm not saying I'm opposed to it.
I do good work, right? And the
Got your
assembly
attention, huh?
the assembly proposal has no extra funding for the centers of excellence, but they do accept the governor's funding level. And I'm hearing in the negotiations that some of the upstate centers of excellence are asking for additional funding. So there may be a deal on this issue. So I'm hopeful that we will be getting our additional $500,000. Another legislative item that was included in the executive budget proposal, which is very important to Stony Brook, is a proposal to remove residential hall borrowing costs from the state debt cap. I think we discussed this at a prior council meeting. Because the residence halls are, if you will, self-funded by the resident hall fees, we've made the argument to the legislature that it shouldn't count towards the state borrowing cap. So if you'll recall, several years ago, to try and get the state's debt under control, the legislature put a statutory cap on the amount they could borrow. The state is approaching that cap, and so it is hindering our ability to borrow. So we're making the argument that we should be removed from that cap because we can actually pay for the debt service with the fees. That proposal is getting traction. The Senate budget bill included this proposal. The Assembly bill did not, but we are working very hard to educate the Assembly on this issue, and I've heard that there's been very positive discussions that this will be in the final budget proposal. Also on the legislative front, there is a bill in the Senate and the Assembly, and it was there last year as well, which would make the SUNY campus foundations and the research foundation subject to the Freedom of Information law. Now, these foundations are separate 501c3 organizations, like the Stony Brook Foundation, which is has as its mission to raise funds to support Stony Brook University. The money goes to scholarships for our students and other projects of interest and in support of the university. This legislation would require that these not-for-profit entities be subject to the Freedom of Information law. So it would require us the foundation to disclose information related to research and intellectual property, and also fundraising strategies, names of donors, and the amount of donations. So this is a bill that the foundation, obviously, and other foundations is not supportive of, and we will be making our arguments to the sponsor. This bill is sponsored by Senator Laval in the Senate, so we do let him know that we are not in favor of this. The foundation is subject to disclosure, as are all 501c3s. They file a Form 990 tax return, which has a lot of the information related to its finances available for public disclosure. And we also must report any lobbying activity that the foundation engages in. Just like any other entity, they're subject to the lobbying rules, and so lobbying reports are filed both on the state and federal levels.
So Elaine, the big story in the Albany Times-Union yesterday regarding the SUNY Stony Brook Foundation and the Buffalo Foundation seemed to be a lot of noise, and we, as a separate not-for-profit company, corporation, we do all the other disclosure requirements that we're obligated to do, and so what was that story all about? Were they trying to?
So the reporter who wrote that story, and I don't know if any of you saw it, it was on the front page of the Albany Times-Union. The reporter is a strong proponent of this FOIL bill. Every year around this time, he writes a story trying to encourage support for the FOIL bill. And so this year he focused on the foundations. And, my argument to the legislature when I get back up there is going to be, he wrote such a robust story based upon the public documents that are available. If we were so clandestine, he never could have written that article. All of that information was available to him through our 990 and through the lobbying reports. So I'm not sure what a FOIL extension would do, except maybe invite the public into private meetings where we're discussing potential donors and fundraising strategies. And it would really put Stony Brook and other SUNY campuses at a very significant competitive disadvantage. No other university has their fundraising strategies subject to an open meetings law. So I used to work, at LIU. That's a 501c3. They lobby, they raise money. No one's looking at their meetings. And I think donors could potentially be, driven away. at the, with the thought of the disclosure that they would be subject to just because they've chosen to support a public university in New York as opposed to a private university.
Are they lumping in the individual foundations with the concerns that were raised with the research foundation from a couple of years ago, the whole Joe Bruno
Yes.
Thing?
Yes. So a few years back, there was stories written about an alleged no-show job at the research foundation. I guess reporters had trouble accessing that information, and so there was a movement afoot to subject the research foundation to FOIL. And FOIL is a statute that has as its origin the idea that taxpayer money is funding certain projects, and that taxpayers have a right to know where the money is going. That's just not true with respect to the Stony Brook Foundation or the Research Foundation. There are no taxpayer dollars flowing through those foundations. So the whole purpose of the FOIL bill is not served by extending it to essentially private donors and private money. So the whole, there are other ways to get at the information, and as you could see from Jim O'Donnell's article, it's very transparent, the work of the foundation.
But you can further distinguish our foundation from the SUNY Research Foundation, right? Whereas that is clearly a part of SUNY, where our foundation is strictly for the benefit of Stony Brook, right?
So we do make those arguments in Albany all the time, so absolutely.
Good.
I think the only thing, so that was a great explanation by Elaine, and the only thing I'd add is that the article is Elaine said, is a great example of, if you read kind of the first paragraph of that article, it raises all sorts of things and said, money's going on in different ways, and then when you actually read the article, what you discover is, as we completely disclose, we did some lobbying on behalf of SUNY 2020, which is, we've just learned today, is something that really assured the fiscal stability, essentially in a time of budget cuts for SUNY, not just Stony Brook, but for SUNY as a whole. And so I think we're proud of the activities we had in that area, and we are happy with that outcome. But lost from that article is, of course, all the incredible positive things that the foundation does. The scholarships, the endowed professorships. We'll learn in a minute how much money we've raised, essentially, in ways that are changing the lives, essentially, for students on this campus, and helping to support faculty as well. So, that's missing from this article, and these kinds of things, this FOIL bill, really could have a chilling effect, essentially, on our ability to raise these kinds of funds. And if we can't do that, then, as we've talked many times before, our ability to really push to that upper level to really achieve excellence is going to be, I think, in jeopardy. So these stakes are not small in this. I take it very seriously. But as I said before, it's interesting, how transparent we are. I mean, we're really totally transparent, and I think that came through the article about what we do. And yet there's still an attempt to reach into areas that are really completely inappropriate for the state to be reaching into. It's not taxpayer money, it's private donors who are making a contribution to try and help this university. And the idea that their business should be disclosed, our strategies should be disclosed, is really completely wrong. And I think, as you said before, there's nothing going on at the Stony Brook Foundation that we're ashamed of or trying to hide. Everything we're doing is designed to push this university forward.
And I'll be honest with you, as a layman, the transparency is what's hurting us more than anything else. Because lay people don't really know what or where the money is coming from, or they know where the money is coming from. And they're envious of it.
Well, I think there's a confusion. People get confused and think somehow this is taxpayer dollars, yes, that the Stony Brook Foundation, somehow it's money they're putting in. Of course, it's not. And that's really, that's missing almost. He doesn't really make that clear distinction in the article. This isn't, none of this is taxpayer dollars. And so, that's what this is.
Does this become retroactive? Could they, if that gets approved?
No.
And is there possibly a legal challenge to this if this gets passed?
Yeah.
How real is it to get passed, and why is Senator Laval the sponsor of it? Any particular reason?
So I can't speak for Senator Laval.
No, but do you know of anything that?
You know, I suspect that it went back to the Research Foundation, and I'm trying to get information about that alleged no-show job and some of the expenditures of the Research Foundation itself. And it has not passed in prior years. I'm a little concerned this year, just because the Senate majority is now operated by a coalition. And so some of the folks who head up that coalition may be more inclined, if we don't educate them, that, you know, FOIL is always seen as good in Albany, but FOIL applied to non-taxpayer funds is a misstep, and that's what we have to educate them about.
Thank you.
I think we covered sequestration in a prior discussion, so I just would like to add that, you know, Dr. Stanley was down in, on Capitol Hill making these arguments to our congressional and Senate leaders, and they are very much on our side on this. So I just want to run through a couple of federal proposals we have pending. We are putting together a Department of Defense energy storage proposal, working with BNL and Senator Schumer's office in particular, to propose an energy storage solution center headed up by our energy researchers here at Stony Brook. Again, the president and the provost were down in Washington meeting with Senator Schumer and others on this. And we have a meeting coming up later this week with the Senate Armed Services Committee in Washington to pitch the proposal. We're also working on...
Yeah, just to back up to that one. Now, B&L did not get the battery storage facility. Is that storage facility sort of like the next thing we're trying to compete for, since we were not successful with B&L on the first one?
Correct. That was a proposal with the Department of Energy. We've now moved over to the Department of Defense because we think they have needs for this proposal as well.
Good.
And also, we're working with BNL. There was a report by the Department of Energy subcommittee reassessing the long-range plan for nuclear science in this country. And the report recommended a $50 million increase in base funding to keep all 3 nuclear facilities in the country open. The report concluded that if $50 million was not put into the base funding, the alternative would be to close one of the nuclear centers, and they chose the RIC out at BNL, and that would cost about 800 jobs. So we are working with Tim Bishop's office and Senator Schumer's office. A full court press is on to get $50 million put into the president's budget and in the Senate, and support for that in the Senate budget resolution. In the post-Sandy world, our School of Atmospheric and Marine Science is on front and center. We have 2 current proposals pending. There's a research proposal we're submitting to NOAA for $1 million, working with a consultant hired by SUNY Central who has NOAA background, and we are putting that proposal together and pitching it in Washington. Also, we are trying to qualify for some FEMA money that will be dispersed by the state. We've formed a partnership with NYU, NYU Poly, BNL, CUNY, Columbia, and others for a $25 million joint research proposal. We are going to be taking that proposal to Albany with the full support of the New York congressional delegation, not just the Long Island congressional delegation, and the support of our 2 senators. So we're, again, hopeful about that. And what really advanced that proposal is on SUNY Day in DC, we brought down some students to talk about their research in Sandy-related matters, and they were the star of the show. So that's what got all the support from the New York congressional delegation. When we let our students speak, it works magic. We have one more federal proposal that we're working with Congressman Israel on, and he would like to create a cybersecurity hub on Long Island, and he is looking to Stony Brook as a lead. If you go to our website right now, you'll see a great vignette from the Discovery Channel about our reality deck over in the Advanced Energy Center and in CWIT, and that has applications in this cybersecurity proposal. So that's my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Elaine, would you go back to the increasing the debt limits and specifically for student housing? When we build new dorms, don't we go through DASNY?
Yes, we do.
And is the debt limit imposed by DASNY across the state, or is it specific? I understand you mentioned that there are rents that would be anticipated revenue for the one. So is that something that Stony Brook is having a problem with uniquely, or is it all across the SUNY system?
It's all across the SUNY system,
Okay.
absolutely. And so we're joining with all the other SUNYs on this issue, and I suspect that's why it's getting so much traction. I mean, it makes sense, but it also helps when you have every SUNY out there advocating for it.
It relates to Diana's question too, about that she asked earlier about the financing. So that would have to be resolved before you would move to any increase in student housing. I think Barbara explained this to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
No, thanks, Elaine.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is a tobacco-free initiative with Donna Bueller, the Director of Organizational Wellness and Healthier You Initiatives.
And I think Tanja's actually going to present.
Yes, I'm going to step
Right.
away from it for 2 seconds.
Do I have the old one?
It's like being Andy
Yes.
Griffith on the show, you know, the justice of the peace, the sheriff.
Could we do this in my home?
I'm sorry, Tanja.
Oh, that's quite all right. But in the meantime, while we're getting this set up, I will introduce Donna Bueller. Donna is our Director of Organizational Wellness and Healthier You, and we appreciate this opportunity to basically provide a very brief update on something that you will begin to hear a lot more about. Please understand that the brevity of this presentation in no means indicates the fact that we don't understand the complexity of this, but what we're trying to do with this presentation is to pretty much give you just the general idea of what is about to take place, some of our planning efforts, and to at least let you know that this is something that you will hear a little bit more about in the near future. Just to give you a little bit of background, in keeping with the SUNY strategic plan, the 6 big ideas, and specifically SUNY and a Healthier New York, the Board of Trustees passed a resolution in June of 2012 for a tobacco-free SUNY. And basically what this means is that all SUNY campuses will be required to become tobacco-free by January 1, 2014. So considering when this took place, I'm sure you've all heard something about this, but again, as you might imagine, this will take a considerable amount of planning as we move forward. Presently, Stony Brook is a smoke-free campus. We have a smoke-free policy, and we have just recently begun the formal planning efforts to transition to this expanded tobacco-free status. Just to give you a little bit of a sense of what we're working with here and looking at the difference between smoke-free and tobacco-free, according to the American Non-Smokers' Rights Foundation, as of January 2nd, 2013, at least a few more than 1,100 colleges and universities in the United States had adopted a smoke-free campus policy, basically eliminating smoking in indoor and outdoor areas across their campus, including the residences. When you look at tobacco-free campuses that are 100% tobacco-free, as of November 2012, the American Lung Association noted that there were about 290 colleges and universities that were 100% tobacco-free, meaning that they prohibited smoking and all forms of tobacco use anywhere on their campus with no designated smoking areas. Just as we took a look at this with Stony Brook being an AAU and the few more than 60 campuses that represent the AAU, of those that are only 16 are 100% tobacco free, so that lets you know pretty much where we are in that group. SUNY, as we look at the 64 campuses of SUNY, we are all just getting to that point where we are moving toward the state of being tobacco free. SUNY Upstate Medical has been smoke-free since 2005. They became tobacco-free in 2012, and they have been somewhat of an example for us to use as we're looking to this, but certainly there are not very many examples within SUNY that we can use as models for this. CUNY has been tobacco-free since September of 2012. So as we look at how we approach this for Stony Brook in terms of becoming a fully tobacco-free campus, we have been looking at some of the work that was done by SUNY Upstate Medical, as well as Emory University in Atlanta and the University of Michigan. Now again, we do recognize that this is a complex issue that we're going to have to deal with. The scope of our outreach will be pretty massive. When you're looking at our university community, we are having to consider our current faculty and staff, which is a population of over 14,000, students of more than 24,000. So that just trying to deal with the outreach of faculty and staff and students alone is quite complex. We also recognize that we have to outreach to prospective students, our visitors and alumni for things such as sporting events, commencement, conferences, all kinds of meetings and performances. We must reach out to our university vendors as well as our campus neighbors. And so as we look at how we transition to becoming a tobacco-free campus, each of these populations and sets of stakeholders are very important for us. Just to give you a little bit of a sense of our progress today, we are continuing to consult with our campus experts, colleagues, students, and other universities as it relates to planning and implementation. The wonderful thing about having all of these wonderful healthcare facilities and centers on our campus is that we do have access to a number of individuals who can assist us as we plan and move ahead. We're also using our Healthier You site, which has become much more robust since you last heard about it, to promote smoking cessation and help people to understand that there are resources available not only right here on campus but also within our local community to assist with smoking. And the Stony Brook University Office of Communications is working with us now on an informational website that will help us to communicate to all of the stakeholders that you saw earlier about this tobacco-free initiative. Following an official announcement from the President, which we anticipate will be very soon, we will formally launch 2 committees. We will have a student committee as well as a faculty and staff committee, and our students in that group, many of them have already been gathering to talk about some of the issues that we will face. But trying to get these 2 groups together in separate committees so that we could talk about how we will move forward, how we can promote smoking cessation, and to facilitate the transition to a completely tobacco-free campus. Some of the issues that we have faced, certainly Donna Bueller can speak to those because she has been at least working preliminarily with our students, and as we have tried to do a considerable amount of homework as we look at how we roll this out. But we do understand that this will be a very long and difficult task. And speaking to some of my colleagues, especially here on Long Island, many of them are quite behind in moving forward with this, but again, they are also doing homework and working to try to plan. So we'd be happy to answer any questions, but certainly we will continue to keep you updated on our progress, and you should be hearing more about this as we formally launch this campaign here very shortly.
Diana, then Len.
Yeah, I just have a basic question. The definition of tobacco-free and smoke-free, does that mean like spittoons and chewing tobacco? I'm a little confused, really and truly.
Yeah, absolutely. They're talking about hookahs, even e-cigarettes,
Gotcha.
chew, dip,
Okay.
every other form of tobacco product aside from cigarettes.
Okay, because I was just
And
a little.
And that is, will be defined in policy.
And
Okay.
I trust other things that can be smoked on campuses are covered by that.
That's the drug-free workplace.
That's under the drug-free workplace, got it. Not that ever happens at Stony Brook, at least not when I went here. And Len?
Obviously, it's a public health issue. There's a question about it. Now, my question is, I remember very well, about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a settlement between the tobacco company and some hospitals. Are you aware whether Stony Brook got any of those settlements or not?
I'm sorry, I
The
missed.
settlement.
Settlement with the tobacco.
Industry.
Five
There was some
companies.
county money, right? The county
Yeah.
had a settlement
I
also,
certainly read about it.
years ago,
Stony
yeah.
Brook and benefit.
He was the chairman.
And that's something that we have talked about, I guess, with our vice presidents and others. There's a small group of us that are sort of working on the planning, that we are trying to understand all of our connections as it relates to this.
Tobacco settlement receipts is what it's called.
Went to the state.
Yeah, and the county.
And the county.
And so there are a number of free resources. There's the Tobacco Coalition of Long Island, and there's a number of other free resources so that in terms of budgeting for this public health campaign, we can get, educational materials and other things, and that came from probably, what we're talking about.
Settlements, yeah.
John? And then Fred?
Does the university understand, an understanding of the number of students and or faculty that are currently, smoking regularly?
We're
Is it a
working
very
now
small
to try
percentage?
to assess that, and if there are significant populations of students or others on our campus that are smoking. So we are preparing, our preventive medicine specialists on campus are working with us on a survey to try to better understand if there are specific stakeholders, groups that we need to target more in terms of smoking. But that is a part of the planning that we will soon unveil in terms of understanding better through the surveys.
But anecdotally, is the population of students that are smoking, is it going down like the rest of the population? Or is it about the same, do we know? Or?
I think we need to obtain that evidence, and John's question was a very good one. I think the impression is that, if you were to ask me, I would say our international students may have a disproportionate higher number, but I don't think that's been proven yet, but I think that would be the assumption.
Fred?
Yeah. Let me suggest that you involve the University Environment Committee in this. We were very well with Robert Chair now a number of years and transitioning to the smoke-free campus.
Hold on, if you
Yeah, I mean,
could make
and
a note
there's
of
been efforts certainly with the University Senate, a proposal back several years ago in terms of smoking ban, et cetera. So we'd like to support that, and I have some invitations to talk to that committee. And I thought as soon as the president's message goes out, I'll be more than glad to be able to review the progress, because it's going to be involving all the stakeholders, faculty, staff, students, leadership, and committees. So I think that's very important.
And we want to make sure that we do all of this before any formal policies or, so that these individuals and groups can be a part of the development of the formal policy that we eventually put forward.
Student?
I was under the impression that there had to be legislative action in order for the policy to go in effect SUNY-wide. Is that correct?
No, as of right now, the expectation is that we will transition to a tobacco-free campus by January 1, and so that has been brought to us from SUNY, and that is the expectation.
So
was the Board of Trustees, the SUNY Board of Trustees was able to make that?
Okay, so it's just, I heard from one of the trustees that it was supposed to go through the legislature as well. I guess they were wrong. Thank you.
But ultimately, the game plan would be if you're faculty or staff or a student, if you want to have a cigarette, you have to leave the campus to have one?
That will be pretty much that is pretty much the understanding
Get
right
people
now.
out.
And so all of the issues related to that, we know.
They'll be out on the highway. Nichols Road.
There are going to be all these people waiting for a train, but they're not really waiting for a train. And then the Long Island Railroad, I think, is already banned. That's not an option, on their platforms.
And these are the kinds of issues that we are seeking to talk about at this point, while there is still time. Trying to be able to explain what this means, and also dealing with the issues of how we encourage our faculty, staff, and students to comply with the policy. So those are things that we're really trying to work on how we address and how we can encourage this kind of behavior on the campus.
Encourage the economic benefits of not buying cigarettes and all that stuff, which is very expensive. I mean, that money could be used for much better purposes.
Tuition.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of this, I think it's nuts.
Does the ruling lay out how you enforce this and what the penalties
There
would
you
be?
go.
No, there has not been a whole lot that we have been able to use in terms of, through SUNY as a model, so that's one of the reasons why we have been looking to other campuses that have done this at least reasonably successfully so that we can better understand how we should go about doing this. I think the website will be very helpful in terms of ultimately being able to provide people with information related to frequently asked questions, but also even providing whether it's faculty, staff, students, supervisors, and others with information on how to talk to people if they notice that they are smoking on campus or if they smell smoke on them after they have returned, and those kinds of things that we're trying to see the best ways to address.
Is the med school smoke-free?
Yes.
Yes.
So, that's the problem we have, because, we have an institution with three groups, so, it's almost going to be very impossible to enforce.
It will be an interesting issue to move forward with as we have the medical center campus, you have the main campus and our other locations. So, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of continued planning and looking at how we address this for all of our campuses and locations.
But I think it's, just to be clear, I see this as a very positive step for the university and the health of our students, faculty, and staff. So I'm very much supportive of it. And I think actually having the same policy apply to the hospital, the medical school, and the university will simplify things, I hope. And so I think very supportive.
We will certainly keep you posted, and as additional plans have been implemented, we will certainly make sure that you're aware of those. Thank you.
Thanks, Tandra. Our final presentation today is from Dexter Valley. Dexter, that applause wasn't for you.
That was residual.
Okay. It was for Morgan leaving. Bye, Jim. Dexter will brief us on all the great things that have been happening regarding the foundation this year.
Great, thank you so much.
Has it been a year yet? How long have you been with us?
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah,
Flying by.
Yeah.
It has gone by quickly. So thank you, Chairman Law and the committee for giving me a chance to brag a little bit about the great success that Stony Brook has had in the last year plus. And today we're going to focus on the Simons Challenge. So for those of you who don't understand or may not remember the details, Jim and Marilyn Simons and the Simons Foundation made a contribution of $150 million. $50 million of that was a challenge grant to try to encourage others to support and invest in the future of Stony Brook. And I'm going to talk today specifically about the challenge grant. And the first slide here is really just to remind us that it's really the individuals that have helped us to get to where we are today. And many people stepped up and took part in this challenge. So a few points that I think help frame the context of my presentation. And these are the guidelines that we followed as we move forward and try to meet the match. So we had a strong preference to try to provide more scholarships for our undergraduate and our undergraduate students. Maintaining access to Stony Brook was a key component of our fundraising initiative. Dr. Stanley has many times talked about the critical need to make sure that we retain our best faculty and we attract the best faculty from around the world to come to Stony Brook. So creating professorships and chairs was a big part of our initiative. Academic excellence, of course, trying to raise funds for those areas across campus that are truly leaders on a national level. First-time alumni, goes back to the U.S. News and World Report conversation. Our alumni giving is very low, I think. It's not low within the context of public universities, but when you come to a school like Stony Brook and you see the strength of the community and you recognize that 80,000, 90,000 of our alums live between here and Manhattan, it's something that we really have to tackle, and it's 4%, by the way, of the U.S. News and World Report rankings. We also wanted to encourage those donors that have the capacity to go to the next level to do that. So there was a $25,000 threshold for existing donors to move up from where they were to make multi-year commitments, and we would match that as well. Some of the things that we did also wanted to emphasize is that of the $50 million, there were gifts. Athletics was one of those opportunities that was a little bit outside because Jim and Marilyn wanted to focus on the core academics However, they made an additional $1 million to support athletics outside of this, so it was $51 million in total. So they gave $151 million because they really saw the importance of athletics and moving that program forward. We did not want to fund construction projects, so we've tended to stay away from funds that came in for construction projects. Bequest intentions, once again, these are individuals that say, okay, Stony Brook's going to get 5% in my will, and those types of things we didn't count. And then I thought it was actually quite staggering that when we started this initiative, including the Simon's $50 million, we had another $10 million that still currently Ken Kaczynski and I are working on fundraising for Children's Hospital, so we're about halfway through that additional challenge. So if anybody's interested, Children's Hospital, there's lots of great opportunities that are over there as well. We have $5 million with the Turkana Basin, so that's the work that Richard Leakey does on human origins. We're about $1 million away from completing that match. Many of you attended the gala last year where we recognized Jackson Pollock's 100th birthday, and there was a $1 million challenge there. So when we started, we had $66 million in available one-to-one matches for gifts to the university. This is just a really quick slide to show you how the challenge works. So in October, when we actually booked the gift with Jim and Marilyn, we were the $25 million. I don't know if there's a pointer on this. The $25 million was our initial threshold, but we had to earn the second $25 million. So when we signed the gift agreement, we had a $25 million commitment. We had to raise 25, then we got another 10, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to get to the 50. So it was a staggered commitment. And one of the reasons it was staggered is because we didn't have any idea whatsoever that we were going to be able to do this in 12 months. We thought this was going to take a few years. And then so the Simons Foundation were setting thresholds for us to meet. So this is how the money was distributed. Once again, if you go back to those core strategic objectives that we wanted to meet for faculty, we raised 9 new professorships and chairs. If you go to the second line, the academic programs and centers, we endowed many academic programs and centers, and I'll give you some examples later on in the presentation. The 4 represents 4 additional chairs that are in those centers that have yet to be designated. I'll give you 2 examples. One is a $10 million gift that we received from an anonymous donor, and there are potentially 3 professorships that are going to, come out of that $10 million in advanced computational science. And then there's another gift that the president and I recently closed in global health, and that will also have 3 or 4 endowed professorships and chairs. But until we get the directors in place and those strategic plans are set forth, and we know what type of faculty they want to recruit, we're holding it in that academic program center. As you can see, for scholarships, we did do very well, over $3 million. And then in first-time alumni giving, we were about $230,000 were gifts from first-time alums. That represents about 1,200 individuals that for the first time made the gift to their alma mater, which was not bad in the first year. If we look at the progression of the last 12 months, so just as a point of information, probably too much information, but we signed the gift agreement in October 2011, but we didn't actually do the announcement until December, so we essentially started our campaign in December, and you'll see how the money kind of came in. So we had a really great December, and then there needed to be kind of a build-up. This month, in March, we received that $10 million anonymous gift that I talked about. Then we kind of, during the natural course of the year, usually August is a down month, and then you can see our spike here. There were a lot of negatives to the fiscal cliff, but I think one of the benefits was the fact that a lot of people, not knowing what was going to happen with the charitable deduction, started coming forward, and we had an amazing December. It was really, I think, probably one of the busiest Decembers, if not the most busy and most productive December in the history of the school.
They'll have to threaten that again this year.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great
fundraising
strategy. And so if you look at the money, once again, our first-time alumni donors, so about $230,000 went all across campus, and athletics was included in that. So if an alum for the first time wanted to make a $100 gift to athletics, we did do that. And then if you look at major gifts, about $49 million in major gifts. The really powerful thing here is that 50% of the money of the $50 million is already on campus working for students, working for faculty, working for these academic students. 50% being in is quite an amazing number. Most of the pledges were 5-year pledges, but as I said, a lot of people on the end of the year made extra payments on their gifts or just gave the money all outright, which was really tremendous. If we look at our alumni and how they participated versus Friends of the University, so these are those 1,300 alums that I talked about. So you can see, this is just giving you a sense as to where they participated. You know, a vast majority of our alums participated between the $1 to $250 level in their first giving. And then we had one alumni family that gave $1 million to their very, very first gift to the university, Carol and Eugene Chen. So that was really tremendous. And they support cardiac wellness with Dr. Poon's effort. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what's going on with the first-time alumni giving. Yeah. If you look at, so this is comparing alumni to friends, and I think this is where the story is truly told about our opportunities going forward. Thanks to Jim and Marilyn, there were a number of people that we were able to engage, and what I tell everybody is I think once they got engaged with the university, they realized the depth and the breadth and the excellence that was here, and many, many people really stretched. So if you can see here, we had 16 gifts of $1 million or more, but the yellow represents individuals that are friends of the university, and then the blue are the alumni gifts that came in these particular categories. So there are many, many people in the community that have now really, they understand the breadth and the depth and the importance of having a world-class public institution in their backyard.
Dexter, what period of time is that? This chart?
This is, you mean 12 months?
12 months.
Yeah, 12 months. Yeah, everything I'm showing you is pretty much from December to December. Now, once again, going back to our strategic objectives, we wanted to grow our endowment and build for the future. So this slide shows you that $19 million came in restricted, so these are projects. To give you another example, one of the things that we're working on is the cleanup of Shinnecock Bay on the South Shore. So a donor gave $1.5 million for that project. That's current use, so that would be in that $19 million restricted budget. And then we were able to put most of the money towards our endowment. So $30 million of the $50 million is going towards endowment. You can take all these numbers and, of course, double it, right? Because it's all being matched 1 for 1. But this helps us to provide for the university for the long term by having our endowment grow by $60 million. And then you can see the unrestricted portion was about $92,000. I don't expect you to read this, but I think it's really important that we recognize that many faculty and staff stepped up. They contributed over $700,000 to the university, and I think that says a lot about the culture that has been built here under President Stanley. I'm going to embarrass a couple people in the room, starting with my boss, President Stanley, who he and his wife, Ellen, made a commitment to create scholarships for students to go to medical school. It's over $100,000. Elaine Crossan created a scholarship in the School of Journalism. Barbara Chernow created a scholarship in the School of Journalism, and many other people in the room have given as well. But I think that they deserve special credit because I think all three families really stretched and they qualified for the match. So where did the money go? Here's a little snapshot to show you where the money went. Arts and Sciences, of course, encompasses such a big part of our campus footprint. They were about 10 million of the 50. School of Medicine, 13 million. And then no, Dennis and Sam don't get to keep the $13 million there, but 10 of it is that advanced computational science, advanced computer center that we got the $10 million gift for, and those programs roll up directly to the president and provost. So that's why they're listed right here. And I would say, just on the FOIL issue, here's a donor that gave the $10 million that wants it to be completely anonymous. And this would be the risk when Elaine says that this really kind of would put us at a competitive disadvantage. Somebody like that gave the $10 million would not give to Stony Brook, period, if he thought that there was a chance that his personal desire to help the university would be disclosed and his name would be out there. This is somebody that does not want to be in the paper. So thank you, and I also need to mention that I have a great staff. They're a lean group. They work really, really hard, and the deans at the university really stepped up. Many of the people in this room really stepped up and were involved in making the gifts and helping us to retain the gifts. And it's a campus community. It really takes, when you talk about a culture of philanthropy, everybody on the campus needs to recognize how important this is. And we think it's a privilege to be able to work on behalf of Stony Brook.
great job, Dexter, and a nice presentation. Any questions, Fred? And
How
then
much
John?
money comes in annually in amounts that are too small to qualify for this? Or came in last year?
Oh, so under
Less than
25,000?
25,000.
I would say about 1.2, 1.3 million in our annual fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there are a lot of gifts that we raised that didn't qualify for this. So there are some large gifts that came in that didn't meet that criteria. Maybe it was for a construction project or something outside of one of our strategic objectives.
John, then Diana.
Dexter, how do you coordinate, if you do it all, with the fundraising for the Children's Hospital?
Yes. Yeah, so the Children's Hospital is a really great opportunity right now. So we have an anonymous donor, another anonymous donor, $10 million opportunity, and every gift that goes towards the construction of the new facility, the new 120-bed Children's Hospital, will get a one-to-one match. We have, I have about 7 individuals that work on the Stony Brook Medicine fundraising team, and they do a really, really great job. And we have a young woman named Danielle Holton that's totally dedicated to this 24/7. So we're about halfway through that initiative. We've qualified for $5 million. One thing I guess I should emphasize is that there's a deadline, there's a sunset in that challenge, and if we don't raise the $10 million within the next year or so, we stand the risk of losing the opportunity to get that completely matched. But yeah, Children's Hospital is moving along. We have a great task force, but we have a lot of work to do there. And I would say, you know, it would be wonderful, really tremendous, and Ken can comment to have a naming opportunity there. And so, you know, a donor that could see the value in having their name associated with pediatric care and Children's Hospital.
So the dollars for the Children's Hospital flow through the foundation?
Yes, they do.
Okay,
Yes,
I wasn't aware of that.
And don't we periodically, I'm mixing it up with Southampton Hospital, print a list of donors by category?
Yes.
And
Yes,
so
annual
why would
reporting.
they, yeah, I mean, you know, so how much disclosure do we have to make?
It's another good
I mean,
point.
I
our
see
annual
that in the
report.
literature,
But it
yeah.
can be
with the-
anonymous.
I know, but I mean, crying out loud.
Yeah.
You know, we do pretty much more than we have to do.
Right. So
Because
that's
I know we
published
do
in
print
print.
that in the literature when I get that, so
Yes.
I kind of, you know,
It's
yeah,
very good
I mean, that's one of the things that we can say, how much more do you want? If somebody wants to be private, one person,
Right.
they should get over it.
No different than they donate to
I
a
mean,
private university.
Jesus. I mean, you know, I
Next time,
understand
Diana,
people.
tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, no, I mean, seriously, if I want to give $10 million, I probably don't want my name there because I don't want everybody coming to me asking for money. I mean, that's one of the reasons, I guess, these people don't want to have their name listed, so
That's right.
I just feel it's so ridiculous, and you can put that on the record.
I think we have.
Hello.
So you weren't aware, the entire meeting is webcasted, so.
Great, no,
it
I
is on
am
the
aware,
record.
thank you.
Thank you, Dexter.
Thank you.
Dexter.
That applause is for you.
Any of the council members wish to raise any new business? Hearing none, our next meeting is May 6th. The place to be determined, Susan will let us know once we pick it.
No, the Southampton
Frank?
Yeah, a large issue that is on the south shore of Long Island, Belport, Patchogue, the whole south shore, is the breach that's taken place over on Fire Island in the National Seashore. And Stony Brook has weighed in on that through Professor Flagg, who lives in the area. And I don't know where we're going, but there's a robust debate whether it should be closed or not. And a lot of local people around the side of the university's thought of keeping it open and letting it, the bay flush and prosper. So anyway, that's going well, but that wasn't mentioned.
Good.
Failed to ask about the hospital, Stony Brook and Southampton, how's that
Ken, you want to comment
moving along?
briefly
Yay?
on that?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'll temper my remarks. This has been a rather frustrating development. You heard earlier in the meeting about the being painted with the same brush as downstate, and in some respects, very minimal respects, there are some similarities, but really there aren't. The association between us and Southampton, the Chancellor's office has asked us for lots of things before they will allow us to continue our progress.
Good. Challenger's done such a good job of, you know,
Bob has done a great
He's
job.
a
Bob Chowder,
tremendous
the
executive there,
CPO
so.
At Southampton, this
Yeah.
is a very logical
Oh.
affiliation between the two that in fact the state asked for in the Burger Commission.
Yeah.
And so we're doing what the state wants, we're expanding the health care of citizens of Suffolk. And because of this great concern over the Litch deal with downstate, they have asked us, in my opinion, to go way above and beyond, even as we just do routine kind of projects.
But it is casting a shadow on that. Too
Oh,
bad.
yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
Hearing nothing further. Motion to adjourn by John, seconded by Frank. We'll see you on May 6th, everybody. Have a great spring.
Happy Easter, happy Passover.
And happy Easter, Passover. Yes, thank you.